Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Anil Joshi. He is extremely happy to conduct this lecture today because the topic is of my interest, that is the lesion of mandible, a pattern-based approach to a diagnosis by OPG. I have already got publications on these topics and my wife has helped me for all these things. I am also thankful for Dr. Rajni Joshi who has helped me in this project of the article Lesions of Mandible, a pattern-based approach to diagnosis by OPG, and for a kind permission to present me this in this lecture, interpretation of pathologies. First is odontogenic cyst, or that is called periapical cyst or apical periodontoid cyst. Now what are they? These are the cystic lesions. They are the cyst of mandible. They are of the dental origin. Okay. Often these are asymptomatic. So how they are detected is by routine dental examination when intraoral or exercise is taken for adjacent tooth. They may be detected. Then they are seen in the age group of 30 to 60, that is matured skeleton. They are seen in the age of 30 to 60, usually associated with a non-vital tooth. So a non-vital tooth is one of the requirement along with the cyst to call it as odontogenic cyst or periapical cyst. Now these are two cysts arising from the epithelium due to simultaneous inflammatory process. So repeated inflammatory process produces certain responses. Because of that the cysts are developed. Then tooth infection may lead to necrosis of the pulp. Now how it starts? It starts from the root. It doesn't start from the root, it starts from the pulp. So first is the infection of the pulp, pulpitis. Then pulp infection spreads to the apex of the tooth, and this then goes to the periapical region. In periapical region, it sets inflammatory process, it sets a granuloma, or it can produce a periapical abscess. Now it presents as a unilocular periapical cystic lesion with well-defined sclerotic borders in a close vicinity of the apical portion of the root of a non-vital tooth. So teeth has to be non-vital. Now what is a residual cyst? Has to be residual. It is a cyst, it's a residual. So these are the periapical cyst of the mandible. Okay, after removal of a non-vital tooth. So two things there has to be there. There has to be a non-vital tooth before, and there has to be history of surgery. You need to remove them. So many have similar clinical and radiological features as radicular cyst. However, there is always a missing tooth. A radiologist knows both can look alike, but the history and the surrounding findings will differentiate these two. In residual cyst, you will not find a tooth that is extracted. Now, it may cause displacement of the adjacent cyst, or it may cause expansion. Now, dentigerous cyst. Dentigerous cyst, the age group is 20 to 40. Then a cyst is formed around crown of an unerected tooth. Requirement has to be cyst, has to have a crown of an unerected tooth. So these two things has to be there. Now common areas are third molar, but as we are seeing at the end of lecture, there will be a lot of places or almost all the places where they can occur. So no areas are immune, everywhere you can get a cyst. The cysts are found almost at all regions, but common at second and third molar. Fine. The crown produces a cyst while the root remains outside. So what you get? A crown is around and a tooth remains. So a root is there, crown is inside, and there will be cyst around. So within a cyst you should find a crown. Then only you can call it the dentigerous cyst. Now it may become very large, it can cause expansile lesion, may get infected, and it may produce a pathological fractures. So these are the consequences of dentigerous cyst. Now keratocyst. Keratocysts are often asymptomatic. Now, till now what we are seeing, most of them are asymptomatic teeth. These occur in second and third decade in the posterior body or in the ascending ramus of mandible. So this is the common location. As less common, it's not as common in the molar and premolar area. These two areas, it is not common. males are affected more than women. Now, keratocyst, also called primordial cyst, keratinizing cyst, or keratocytic odontogenic tumors, KCOTs. So these are named synonymous. They are talking of same pathology. They are benign. They are benign intraosseous tumors arising from dental lamina. Okay, fine. Then they are lined by stratified keratinizing epithelium, potentially aggressive, so locally aggressive, infiltrative lesion having high recurrence after the surgery. That is, as we had discussed in this constituency. Ameloblastomas. Ameloblastomas are benign but locally invasive, slowly growing, odontogenic. Then tumor arises from remnants of the dental lamina and dental organs, and less frequently from the epithelial lining of the odontogenic cyst. Now, most lesions being located in the mandible, posterior body and ramus, common at the age of 4 or 40 to 60 without sex predilection. Male and female are equally involved. The clinical features are non-specific, may be complaint of unilateral pendants, so non-specific complaints. They do not have distant metastasis. Now, ameloblastic carcinomas have been described, variants, in the literature. Malignant feature, these are the tumors with histologically malignant features but without metastatic potential, so locally malignant. Then the radiological appearances include, it depends on the histological types, and include unilocular or multilocular radiolucent lesions, that's called soap bubble or honeycombing, with sclerotic borders, displaced adjacent tooth, and resorption, they cause resorption, and extensive bone erosion. Now, simple bone cyst. The simple bone cyst or solitary bone cyst, traumatic bone cyst, hemorrhagic bone cyst, synonymous. It is a cavity and is lined by sclerosis and hemorrhagic fluid, and is characterized by absence of epithelial lining. Is seen after tooth extraction when there is intramedullary hemorrhage. So there has to be intramedullary hemorrhage after the tooth extraction to get transformed into the simple bone cyst. Age of 20 with female predominance. Now, are asymptomatic before discovered initially on the dental radiographs. Now, these appears as a unilocular, well-defined radiolucent lesions of different size. Now, they have got broadly defined borders, extension into the cortical bone cyst is there. They are not commonly they infiltrate. Usually there is no tooth displacement. Tooth remains in the same position. It doesn't get moved. The superior margin are irregular and scalloped. Superior margin are irregular, scalloped around the root. Now, eosinophilic granuloma of the mandible. It's a benign disease. It has 3 types of Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Now, these 3 types include unifocal, multifocal, and multifocal multisystemic. They are more common in children younger than 15 years. The body or angle of mandible is commonly involved. Scalloped appearance is caused due to invasion of the alveolar crest. They have got scalloped appearance, that is because of the invasion of the alveolar crest. When the alveolar bone is destroyed, floating teeth appearance is seen. This is a common radiological description of eosinophilic granuloma, that is the floating teeth. And this is the reason what I explained you just now is the what causes it. Now, can invade muscles of mastication, and diagnosis is made by biopsy only. Now, giant cell granulomas is a benign but occasionally aggressive proliferative intraosseous lesion. Posterior mandible is affected more than the anterior mandible. The typically radiological appearance is that of the multilocular, less than unilocular, well-defined radiolucent lesions. Now, radiolucent lesions with ill-defined borders, we think of giant cell granulomas. Now, osteomyelitis is a very, very common finding. Osteomyelitis, 3 forms are there: acute, subacute, and chronic. So osteomyelitis of mandible are common. There are three types: acute, subacute and chronic. These are caused by bacterial infection of the pulpal or periodontal tissues. So either pulpal tissues or periodontal tissues causes this in addition to mandibular foreign bodies, sepsis or trauma. These are the another three things which can cause it. If above cyclic infection extends into the bone marrow, it can invade blood vessels. So osteomyelitis should be restricted, or it should be treated properly, it should be taken seriously, and aggressive treatment is required because it should not invade the blood vessels. An ill-defined osteoid lesion with bone sequestra is seen in commonly seen in chronic and subacute cases. Chronic infection associated with sclerosis and periosteal new bone formation. These are the same features as that of the other bones. Now, osteonecrosis. Obviously, the history of radiation therapy has to be there. It is uncommon complication of radiotherapy given for the head and neck cancers. It is not very common, but it can occur following the radiotherapy. Usually occurs 5 to 15 years after the radiotherapy. It's not immediate complication, delayed complication. The risks include poor oral hygiene, alcohol, tobacco chewing, poor nutritional status of the patient. So, poor oral hygiene, irrespective of the cause, can cause osteonecrosis. More commonly, after the radiation, though the complication is not a common complication of radiation. Potentially, molar, premolar, retromolar lesion is involved. Depending on the radiation load and administration of radiation dose, there can be unilateral or bilateral involvement of mandible. So involvement can be unilateral or bilateral. Now osteoblastomas. Osteoblastoma is a mesenchymal, well vasculated, benign tumor with production of osteoids. It has more predilection for the posterior mandible than anterior mandible, affecting young people with mean age of 20 years. Clinical symptoms include pain and swelling. The radiological presentation include ill-defined, radiolucent, mixed radiolucent, osteosclerotic lesion. The tumor usually measures less than 4 cm. So the limitation is for the maximum distance. It is less than 4 cm. Make sure calcifications. So this is more important feature. It shows a calcification. The borders are typically coarse and sclerotic and coarse margins. Osteoblastoma has a expansile growth pattern and may cause teeth displacement. Metastasis, another common form. Metastasis are uncommon, but as a mandible lesion, they are fairly commonly seen. Primarily, depending upon the gender, lung, prostate, kidneys and liver tumors are known for showing metastasis to the mandible. Whereas breast, adrenaline, gynecological and colorectal tumors are the most common primaries in females. Typical clinical symptoms include pain, swelling, paresthesia, temporomandibular joint derangement, and obviously there will be history of primary. May be silent and found incidentally, but those patients who has this as a primary needs to be watched for metastatic lesion when there will be any problem in the mandible. Now these are the images which will give you a idea how a OPG looks. Now these are the images from my original research article. They are available also in a journal. I have already told you about that, and these diagrams are taken from that. Now the dental cysts, chronic inflammatory dental cysts are shown in these diagrams. Now all OPGs are of different patient and showing well-defined osteolytic lesion without cirrhosis. The pathology is common. Radiology features are slightly deviating. Patients are different. Now this is the osteomyelitis with a pathological fracture. Here you are seeing contagious spread of known malignancy or oral malignancy. Often the patient will have history of oral cancer, and to stage it or for surgeons to plan the surgery, these OPGs are required, and the involvement of bone is important as far as staging is concerned. Now karyocyst, metastatic lesions, then multiple myeloma. Now these are the dentigerous cysts. Now what are the features of dentigerous cyst? All the OPGs are of different patient. They have what? osteolytic lesions, and all of them have got crown of an unerupted tooth. And if you see the roots, you'll find them outside or in the wall. The crown is surrounded by cystic lesion. Now, have a look at it, make your own opinion, and tell me. It's a well-defined cystic lesion showing crown of an unerupted tooth. Now has to be lentigerous cyst. OPG, yes, definitely whatever indication we are seeing, the temporomandibular joint or of the mandible we are seeing, but one of a good indication is to detect the parotid duct calculus. Now here what we are seeing are the calculi but in submandibular duct. Now note focal osteolysis with poor reactive bone formation. So the bone is not showing any aggressive remodeling or osteoblastic activities are not as good. So there is more osteolysis. That means the lesion has to be extremely aggressive. Now there are two things in it, either infection or spread from a known malignancy. If we have the clinical settings, we can be confident in diagnosing it as the spread of known malignancy. Now here you have multiple myeloma versus metastasis. You will have to go in details of history as well as other lesions in other part of body. Now there is a big ill-defined osteolytic lesion with there's not much reactive bone formation, aggressive lesion, indicating the lesion very aggressive, and there is a pathological fracture. So is an acute aggressive osteomyelitis with a pathological fracture. So multiple lesions are there. There are multiple osteolytic lesions without crown of an unerupted tooth. So there is no crown anywhere. You are seeing? No, there are no crowns. So multiple osteolytic lesion without crown suggestive of inflammatory etiology. Differential for multiple focal involvement include hyperparathyroidism. This is point to remember. If you are seeing multiple osteolytic lesion, also think of hyperparathyroidism. Now this is another indication of OPG. There is a well-defined osteolytic lesion involving roots of the first and second molar. That's fine. But if you see the osteolytic lesion very carefully, it is causing a fistula. So this is another thing which we can diagnose from OPG in cases of fistulas, oral fistulas. Now here again we are saying a cyst without sclerosis. Now tooth is outside, so it's a root abscess. Now not only at one place, you can say at multiple places. There are root abscesses. Now this is what we have discussed, a value of a good radiograph. Now one thing is to know a missing tooth from counting the tooth. Or second is to find it abnormal tooth at an abnormal location. It is important to recognize maxillary sinus shadow. You have to separate it and you have to say the pathology is different than that or that is of same. Now diagnosis is easy when you see crown of an unerupted tooth. Osteolytic lesion, okay, there is osteolytic lesion. Maxillary superimposition can be easily ruled out, but what is more important is to see crown of an unerupted tooth. Now if the tooth are elevated, we have seen it can be a differential for the floating tooth. Now here tooths are extracted. There are no tooth over the lesion. The lesions are expansile. Lesions are having soap bubble appearance. So expansile lesion with multiple osteolytic lesions within it with loss of tooth, which indicate a differential between a giant cell tumor, a glioblastoma or fibrous dysplasia. Again here not only one lesion but other involvement of bone is also equally important. Now see, there is osteolytic lesion. There is osteolytic lesion and there is something at the root of, or that is at the base, at the root of first molar. Now here we have got differential. Differential can be a cyst of dental origin or it can be a cementenoma. Now here again there is a focal osteolysis, a loose tooth, the loss of superior surface of the mandible, that all should raise a suspicion of adjacent malignancy or continuous spread of malignancy. Now look at the aggressive lesion. It's a large lesion, very aggressive. Then there is some reactive bone formation, really not, indicating really aggressive lesion, and this was an osteomyelitis, inflammatory lesion. Now look at this very carefully. It's expansive. It has got soap bubble appearance. There is not much sclerosis. Now let's come to a differential. Ameloblastoma are locally aggressive lesions, expansive, soap bubble appearance or honeycomb appearance with sclerotic margin. This lesion is giant granuloma or tumor. Now not only the acquired tooth pathologies. Now if you see this X-ray carefully, this is a child of 3 years and you will see a lot of tooth bursts are absent. So to know the future of the tooth, the OPG is taken even at the age of 3 years and these are usually detected early. Now if you see very carefully, there is a sclerotic lesion adjacent to third molar. Now sclerotic lesion, the possibility was of cementing. Focal osteolysis, superior margin without much sclerosis, no reactive bone formation, high possibility of malignancy. Now if you see both sides of mandible, the left as well as right body of mandible, you can definitely get the right side is hypoplastic. So for knowing a congenital anomaly of the mandible involving hypoplasia, this investigation plays a important role. Now a large osteolytic lesion. Now interesting feature here is the caries tooth. This is a radicular cyst, not a large caries with a pulpal necrosis. This is what we have described how infection descends down. Now here again, right body of mandible, there is a destruction of the superior alveolar process. Right side, there is continuous spread of malignancy. Now this is a residual cyst. The teeth are missing. The teeth are removed and that is what we are seeing. In residual cyst, teeth has to be removed. So after the removal of teeth, whatever the cyst remains, they are called as residual cyst. Now this calculus in submandibular. Now there are two here. Now this is a post-lecture quiz for you. Now we are coming almost to a concluding remark. We have seen all pathologies of mandible. We have seen how to read them. So the best part to approach a mandible pathology is to go for first whether it is an osteolytic lesion or osteosclerotic lesion, whether it is cystic lesion or whether it is otherwise. Now once we come to any osteolytic lesion, whether it's a cyst or otherwise, if it is a cyst, it is single, multiple, or it has got crown of an unerupted tooth, it has got missing tooth from the above, or it has got a sclerotic margin, it has got soap bubble appearance, or it has got an expansile appearance. Now after all these things combined together, we come to a good diagnosis. Now this I am giving you as a homework. Now there are multiple tooth are seen, just find out how many are there, and multiple osteolytic lesions are seen. If you could diagnose this correctly, I think I justified in my lecture. We have seen how to diagnose common pathologies. We have seen how OPG is taken. We have seen what is the physics of OPG. Now let's see the conclusive remark of this lecture. It is commonly advisable due to a low cost of the machine as well as low cost of the procedure and low cost burden to the patient. So it's a very common indication, and more and more indications are being found out for OPG. Not only for the teeth purpose, not only for the TM joint purpose, not only for the styloid purpose, or also for the salivary gland calculi purposes. Now I have been associated with one of a dissertation or one of the research work where the OPG was used to know the calcification of the carotid in a diabetic patients. So there are more and more indications coming up for the OPGs, and more type of ways it is getting beneficial to the patient, and there are very few contraindications to it. Absolute contraindications are because of the radiation and because of the patient's technical reason. He cannot stand otherwise. Is accepted by majority of patients. There is no complaint whatsoever after the OPG as far as the technique or otherwise is concerned. Then many disease has got characteristic features which can be picked on OPG, and we can be really helpful as far as planning surgeries are concerned to the oncosurgeons by staging the cancer. It's a dynamic study as far as TM joint is concerned, because OPG can image TM joint by opening also and by closure also. It can assess better the articular margins, and it can assess also neck of the mandible, which is otherwise difficult on plain radiography. Now, there are very few, or there are practically no false positive with this test. So I really appreciate if you go in details of the pathological patterns of the dental or mandibular lesions and try to correlate with the OPG accuracy. I'm very thankful you have given me a time. So it's really my sincere thanks for giving me your valuable time. Please note, radiology is not a race. It's not a number game. It's a process. This is a process. Be part of this process and enjoy the feast of knowledge. I am Dr. Anil Joshi, logging off till we meet again. Take care. Do a lot of OPGs, analyze them, try to put knowledge in that, and give your best to the patient.